Imagine you're a young Ottoman princess stepping into the opulent yet suffocating halls of Topkapi Palace in 1520, the air thick with the sweet, cloying scent of rosewater drifting from golden censers and the faint, uneasy whisper of silk as courtiers glide past in their embroidered robes, your heart pounding with a mix of awe and dread as you overhear hushed tales of the first night, a ritual shrouded in fear and whispered warnings. Welcome to the shadowy world of the Ottoman harem, spanning from 1299 to 1922, where princesses like you lived under the unyielding weight of imperial power, their lives shaped by arranged marriages that were less a celebration and more a source of terror, a gilded cage where beauty masked a deeper darkness. This is the beginning of our 7-part journey into why these royal women trembled at the thought of their wedding nights, a taboo history rooted in political alliances, personal sacrifice, and the looming specter of control, preserved in the palace's secret records, the memoirs of eunuchs, and the oral traditions passed down through generations. Historians like Leslie Pierce, in her seminal work on the Ottoman harem, document this tension between duty and dread, and today, its echoes linger in the gender-based pressures and forced marriages faced by women across the globe in 2025, from rural communities to urban power struggles. If this already sends a chill of intrigue and unease through you, hit that like button and subscribe now. Comment below where you're joining us from across the world. Your voice lights the way into this hidden, haunting past. The harem was a gilded cage, where beauty and luxury concealed a deeper darkness of control, expectation, and suppressed emotion. Picture the scene, the soft, rhythmic rustle of velvet curtains swaying gently in a breeze that carries the distant, mournful call to prayer echoing from the minarets, the warm, golden glow of oil lamps casting long, wavering shadows across the polished marble floors, the cold, oppressive weight of a gold necklace adorned with rubies pressing against your delicate neck as you're prepared by silent attendants for a future you did not choose, the air thick with the intoxicating scent of roses from the garden beyond and the subtle, nervous tang of sweat beneath your heavy bridal veil. The Ottoman harem, centered in grand palaces like Topkapi and later Dolmabahce, was not merely a private sanctuary but a political powerhouse, a labyrinthine domain where princesses were pawns in the sultan's dynastic games, their marriages to viziers, vassals, or even rival rulers arranged to secure alliances, strengthen borders, or neutralize threats. Historical accounts, such as the chronicles of the 16th-century historian Mustafa Ali, reveal how these unions were often forced upon the princesses, their fears stoked by tales of submission, isolation, and the unknown horrors awaiting them on their wedding nights, stories passed down by trembling voices in the harem's corridors. The air was heavy with the exotic aroma of perfumes imported from distant lands and the faint, suppressed sobs of those who had gone before, a world where every step toward the bridal chamber was laden with uncertainty, where every ornate mirror reflected not joy but a silent plea for escape. Was this a celebration of royal duty, a noble sacrifice for the empire's glory, or a sentence of silent suffering imposed by a patriarchal system, a world where fear was the inevitable price paid for the privilege of power? The question lingers as the lamp's flame dances in the draught. Many who lived within these opulent yet oppressive walls, princesses stripped of their autonomy and choice, attendants bound by loyalty and silence, eunuchs tasked with enforcing the sultan's will, endured the crushing weight of this oppression, their resilience tested by the constant threat of disgrace, their dread a constant, oppressive shadow cast by the towering arches, their stories buried beneath the grandeur of imperial tapestries and the cold indifference of the palace's marble halls. Their pain a quiet, persistent cry lost to the echoing corridors and the relentless toll of ceremonial bells. Yet this fear was more than a personal burden. It hinted at a broader web of control and manipulation woven into the fabric of the Ottoman Empire itself. Imagine the oppressive, heart-pounding atmosphere, the faint, metallic clink of jewelry as a princess is adorned with golden bangles and pearl earrings for her betrothal ceremony, the bitter, spiced taste of tea sipped to calm her fraying nerves lingering on her tongue, the heavy, final thud of a massive wooden door closing as she's led by eunuchs toward her uncertain fate, the sound reverberating through the harem's labyrinthine passages. Records from the imperial archives, such as those detailing the marriage of Princess Hatase's Sultan to Grand Vizier Ibrahim Pasha under Sultan Suleiman's command, show how these unions were strategic maneuvers, with the first night symbolizing not just a personal milestone but the Sultan's dominance over his family, his court, and his allies, a public display of his unassailable authority. The harem's eunuchs, concubines, and overseers enforced this order with an iron hand, their presence a constant, watchful reminder of surveillance and the consequences of defiance, their eyes missing no detail. Modern parallels emerge in the 2025 discussions of forced marriages and gender-based violence, where women still face power imbalances reminiscent of those imperial courts, from arranged unions in conservative societies to the subtle coercion in corporate boardrooms. Was this a cultural norm woven into the fabric of Ottoman society, a tradition accepted as inevitable, or a calculated tool of subjugation designed to maintain the sultan's iron grip, a world where the harem's shadow shaped a princess's every fear and trembling step? The question hangs as the door shuts with a final, ominous echo. Many suffered in this gilded prison, young royals groomed from birth for a sacrifice they could not refuse, servants complicit in their silence under threat of punishment, mothers watching their daughters march toward an unknown destiny, their resilience a fragile, flickering thread stretched thin by the weight of expectation, their pain a hidden toll paid in quiet tears and stifled breaths, their voices lost to the rustle of silk draperies and the toll of palace bells marking another day of concealed dread. But the dread only deepened with each passing hour. What waited beyond that closed door on the first night, and what horrors lay in store for these princesses? Smash that like button if you're intrigued by this shadowy tale, and subscribe now to uncover the truth that history has long buried. Faint, ominous clatter of armor as foreign emissaries stride in with cold determination, your heart sinking like a stone as you realize your marriage is a chain forged by politics, not a choice born of love. The weight of a jeweled crown pressing down on your brow as you're led by silent eunuchs to stand beside a stern-faced vassal. This is the world of forced wedding vows, a chilling escalation from the harem's shadow in Part 1, where princesses of the Ottoman Empire, reigning from 1299 to 1922, were bound by ironclad political alliances through marriages they could not refuse, their lives sacrificed on the altar of imperial ambition. Here, within the opulent yet oppressive courts of Topkapi Palace and beyond, these unions to grand viziers, governors of distant provinces, or even rulers of enemy states became a profound source of dread, their stories etched into the meticulous diplomatic records of the divan, the whispered tales of harem attendants, and the faded pages of imperial chronicles. Historians like Alan Fisher, in his studies of Ottoman dynastic politics, explore these dynamics of coercion and control, and today, their echoes persist in the forced marriages and gender-based pressures reported in conflict zones and conservative societies across the globe in 2025. If this stirs a wave of unease and curiosity within you, hit that like button and subscribe now. Comment below your reaction to this hidden history. Your voice fuels this tale of resilience and revelation. These marriages were less about the tender bonds of love and more about the cold, calculating calculus of power. A burden that weighed heavily on the princesses' souls and spirits. Picture the scene, the soft, deliberate rustle of silk as you're dressed in a heavy wedding gown embroidered with glistening pearls and intricate gold thread, the warm, flickering glow of 100 candles illuminating the vast hall with an almost theatrical brilliance, the tense, suffocating silence broken only by the heavy, deliberate steps of a bearded vassal approaching with a calculating gaze. The air thick with the aromatic richness of saffron-infused dishes prepared for the celebration. And the subtle, pervasive tang of your own fear mingling with the incense. The Ottoman sultans, from the founder Osman I to the last Mehmed VI, wielded their daughters' marriages as masterful tools of diplomacy, binding princesses to powerful men like Grand Vizier Rustam Pasha, who was wed to Miraima Sultan under the commanding will of Suleiman the Magnificent, or to rulers of vassal states like the Crimean Khanate to ensure loyalty and stability across the empire's vast borders. Historical accounts, such as the detailed letters of the Venetian ambassador Bernardo Navagero, who observed these ceremonies with a mix of fascination and horror, describe how these weddings were lavish spectacles designed to impress foreign dignitaries, yet beneath the grandeur lay a coercive reality, the princesses' consent reduced to a mere formality, their hearts heavy with the foreboding knowledge of what awaited them beyond the ceremonial feast. The air carried the exotic, heady aroma of spiced dishes from the banquet tables and the faint, salty trace of tears shed in private moments, a world where every vow they spoke sealed a fate of submission, where every ornate gift presented was a reminder of their lost freedom. Was this a strategic masterpiece of empire building, a testament to the Sultan's political genius, or a cruel sacrifice of innocent lives to the altar of imperial glory, a system where love was traded for power and fear became the currency of control? The question lingers as the candles' flames dance in the draught. Many who faced this unchosen destiny, princesses stripped of their autonomy and agency, mothers watching in silent, helpless grief as their daughters were given away, attendants bound by duty to prepare them for this fate, endured the crushing weight of this obligation, their resilience tested by the constant threat of dishonor, their fear a constant, oppressive shadow cast by the towering arches of the palace, their stories buried beneath the weight of imperial decrees and the cold splendor of the ceremonial hall, their pain a silent, persistent plea lost to the echoing grandeur and the relentless toll of ceremonial bells. The reality of these forced unions often deepened into a web of political intrigue, personal torment, and societal expectation that shaped the princess's every moment. Imagine the oppressive, heart-pounding atmosphere, the cold, metallic clink of a silver goblet as you're forced to raise it in a toast to your new husband, the bitter, lingering taste of wine masking your deep reluctance and rising panic, the heavy, final thud of a massive wooden door as you're escorted by eunuchs to his distant domain, the sound reverberating through the harem's labyrinthine passages like a death knell. Records from the Ottoman imperial archives, such as those detailing the marriage of Princess Geverhan Sultan to the ruler of Crimea under Selim II's reign, reveal how these alliances were enforced with subtle threats, relentless surveillance, and the ever-present possibility of exile or worse, the princess's fears heightened by the knowledge that refusal meant not just personal disgrace but the potential ruin of their families. The harem's eunuchs, trusted advisors, and overseers played crucial roles in this enforcement, their watchful eyes and whispered commands ensuring compliance, their presence a constant, suffocating reminder of the sultan's unyielding will and the consequences of defiance. Modern parallels emerge in the 2025 cases of forced marriages in war-torn regions and patriarchal societies, where young women face similar coercion under the guise of tradition or necessity. Their voices often silenced by the same dynamics of power. Was this a deeply ingrained cultural tradition accepted as the natural order of royal life, or a calculated act of domination designed to maintain the sultan's iron grip over his empire and its allies, a world where wedding vows became unbreakable chains of fear and submission? The question hangs as the door closes with a final, ominous echo that seems to seal your fate. Many suffered in this imposed union, brides torn from the familiar embrace of their homes and thrust into hostile territories, families bound by the politics of survival and honor, communities complicit in the silence, their resilience a fragile, flickering thread stretched to its breaking point by the weight of expectation, their pain a hidden toll paid in quiet tears and stifled sobs, their voices lost to the clink of goblets raised in false celebration and the tolling of bells marking another day of concealed dread. But the fear only began to unfold with the setting sun. What horrors awaited on that first night, and how did this dread shape their lives forever? Smash that like button if you're captivated by this dark narrative, and subscribe now to dive deeper into the shadows of the Ottoman court. Imagine you're an Ottoman princess in 1570, seated in a dimly lit chamber of Topkapi Palace, the air thick with the smoky, resonant scent of myrrh burning in a brass censer and the faint, nervous rustle of attendants adjusting your heavy bridal veil with trembling hands. Your pulse racing with a mix of anticipation and dread as you're prepared for a ritual that promises joy to the court but fills your soul with an unshakable terror, the weight of centuries-old tradition closing in like a vice. This is the world of rituals of fear, a haunting escalation from the forced weddings of Part 2, where princesses of the Ottoman Empire, reigning from 1299 to 1922, faced elaborate and meticulous preparations for their wedding nights, ceremonies that masked their inner turmoil with a veneer of splendor and imperial pride. Here, within the ornate, labyrinthine walls of the harem, these rituals served as a prelude to their deepest fears, their stories preserved in the delicate pages of palace diaries, the fragmented memoirs of eunuchs, and the historical accounts passed down through generations of court chroniclers. Historians like Gulrin Esipoglu, in her detailed studies of Ottoman architecture and culture, delve into these customs, uncovering the layers of anxiety they concealed, and today, their echoes linger in the cultural and societal pressures on women to conform to traditional roles across the globe in 2025. From arranged marriages in remote villages to the subtle expectations in modern urban settings. If this sends a shiver of unease and intrigue down your spine, hit that like button and subscribe now. Comment below your thoughts on this hidden ritual. Your voice keeps this tale of resilience and revelation alive. These rituals were a facade of beauty and tradition, carefully crafted to hide the princess's inner turmoil, dread, and silent resistance. Picture the scene, the soft, wavering glow of oil lamps casting flickering, elongated shadows on the intricate, mosaic tilework of the chamber, the delicate, almost reverent rustle of silk as attendants drape a heavy, gold-embroidered veil over your head, the cold, unyielding touch of a silver comb running through your hair to untangle the strands of your fate, the air thick with the smoky, aromatic richness of myrrh rising from the censer and the subtle, nervous scent of perspiration beneath. Your layers of finery. In the Ottoman harem, preparations for the wedding night were a meticulously orchestrated affair, involving luxurious baths infused with rosewater to cleanse and purify, the careful application of henna to the hands and feet to symbolize fertility and good fortune, and the donning of lavish garments adorned with jewels, all conducted under the watchful, unblinking eyes of eunuchs, senior concubines, and the veil-eyed sultan herself. Historical records, such as the 17th-century travelogue of Evliya Çelebi, describe how these rituals were intended to present the princess as a flawless bride. A living embodiment of the empire's prestige, yet for many, like Princess Safiye, who was married off to a Crimean Khan under Murad III's decree, they were a torturous prelude to a night of enforced submission and uncertainty, their beauty a mask for the fear that gnawed at their hearts. The air carried the floral, intoxicating richness of rosewater from the bath and the faint, trembling trace of their breaths held in anticipation, a world where every adornment, every pearl, every stitch, was a chain binding them to a destiny they could not escape. Was this a celebration of time-honored tradition, a cultural rite meant to honor the royal lineage, or a carefully constructed mask for coercion and control, a system where beauty was wielded as a weapon to hide the princess's deepest fears? The question lingers as the lamp's flame gutters in the stillness. Many who endured this elaborate preparation, princesses groomed from youth for a sacrifice they dreaded, attendants enforcing the ritual under threat of punishment, mothers torn between duty and despair, faced the crushing weight of this pretense, their resilience tested by the constant pressure to perform, their fear a constant, oppressive shadow cast by the towering arches of the harem, their stories buried beneath the weight of ornate fabrics and the cold indifference of imperial expectations. Their pain a silent, persistent cry swallowed by the rustle of silk and the distant hum of palace life. The deeper purpose of these rituals often tied into the sultan's unassailable authority and the systematic subjugation of the princesses, turning a ceremonial act into a test of obedience. Imagine the oppressive, heart-pounding atmosphere, the faint, delicate clink of a gold bracelet as it's fastened around your wrist by a stern-faced attendant, the bitter, herbal taste of a tonic meant to calm your fraying nerves lingering on your tongue, the heavy, final thud of a massive wooden door as you're left alone in the chamber to await your fate, the sound reverberating through the harem's labyrinthine passages like a judge's gavel. Ottoman sources, including the Risale-i-Gharibi by Asikpasizade, a 15th-century chronicle, note how these preparations were overseen with meticulous care by the veil-eyed sultan, the sultan's mother, ensuring the princess's readiness to fulfill her role as a wife and political pawn, a role that often meant pleasing a stranger chosen by the sultan's decree, regardless of her wishes. The presence of armed guards stationed outside the chamber and the ever-present threat of punishment or exile heightened the tension, turning a ceremonial bath into a grueling test of compliance, where any sign of resistance could lead to severe repercussions. Modern parallels emerge in the 2025 reports of women pressured into traditional roles or forced into marriages under familial or societal duress, their autonomy stripped away by dynamics eerily similar to those of the Ottoman court. Was this a cherished cultural rite passed down through generations, a symbol of continuity and strength, or a calculated tool of domination designed to reinforce the sultan's iron grip over his family and empire, a world where these rituals deepened the princess's fear with every passing moment? The question hangs as the door shuts with a final, ominous echo that seems to lock away their hopes. Many suffered in this preparation, brides facing an unknown and terrifying future, mothers complicit in upholding a tradition they could not challenge, attendants bound by loyalty to enforce the sultan's will, their resilience a fragile, flickering thread stretched thin by the weight of expectation and tradition, their pain a hidden toll paid in quiet tears and suppressed sobs, their voices lost to the rustle of veils and the stillness and the tolling of bells marking another step toward their dreaded destiny. But the silence held a secret far darker than the ritual itself. What lay beyond the ritual's end, and what horrors awaited in the shadows of that first night? Smash that like button if you're gripped by this tale, and subscribe now to uncover the truth that history has concealed. Imagine you're an Ottoman princess in 1600. Alone in a darkened, cavernous chamber of a foreign palace far from Topkapi's familiar walls, the air heavy with the musty, damp scent of ancient tapestries hanging in disrepair and the faint, unsettling crackle of a dying fire struggling to warm the room, your heart pounding like a war drum as the heavy wooden door creaks open with a groan, revealing a stranger whose imposing silhouette promises control rather than comfort, his cold gaze locking onto yours. This is the world of first nights, a harrowing turn from the rituals of fear in Part 3, where princesses of the Ottoman Empire, reigning from 1299 to 1922, faced their wedding nights as acts of terror and domination, their deepest fears realized in the hands of husbands chosen by the Sultan's unyielding decree. Here, within the shadowed, echoing walls of distant courts and provincial strongholds, these nights became a crucible of power, their stories preserved in the fragmented memoirs of survivors, the cryptic entries of court records, and the hushed legends passed down through generations. Historians like Caroline Finkel, in her comprehensive analysis of Ottoman society, uncover this grim reality of subjugation, and today, its echoes linger in the gender-based violence and marital coercion reported across the globe in 2025, from war-torn regions to quiet households. If this grips you with a surge of tension and empathy, hit that like button and subscribe now. Comment below your feelings on this dark chapter. Your voice carries their untold story into the light. These first nights were less about the tender union of marriage and more about asserting an ironclad power over the princess's autonomy and identity. Picture the scene, the soft, wavering flicker of a single candle casting eerie, elongated shadows that dance across the cold, unyielding stone walls, the gentle yet ominous rustle of heavy velvet curtains as a draft seeps through the cracked window, the cold, clammy touch of a silken sheet against your trembling skin as you brace yourself, the air thick with the musty aroma of old fabrics soaked with the passage of time and the subtle, acrid scent of your own fear rising in the stillness. For princesses like Hattusili Sultan, married to Grand Vizier Ibrahim Pasha under Sultan Suleiman's command, the first night was a ritual of submission, where the husband, often a political ally, a rival, or a vassal, used the occasion to establish his dominance, a performance sanctioned and monitored by the Sultan's authority to ensure the alliance held firm. Historical accounts, such as the Tariq-i Osman, a 15th-century chronicle by Asikpasazade, detail how these encounters were overseen by eunuchs stationed outside the chamber, their presence a constant reminder of surveillance, the princesses' tears a silent, futile protest against a fate they could not alter, their sobs muffled by the thick walls. The air carried the damp, earthy chill of the room and the faint, lingering trace of incense burned to mask the tension, a world where intimacy was stripped of affection and transformed into a tool of control, where the marriage bed became a battlefield of wills. Was this a sacred marital bond meant to unite families, a cultural norm accepted by the empire, or a deliberate display of tyranny designed to break the princesses' spirits, a system where fear defined the very essence of their wedding night? The question lingers as the candles flame gutters in the draught. Many who endured this harrowing ordeal, princesses stripped of their will and dignity, attendants enforcing the Sultan's orders with cold efficiency, mothers powerless to intervene, faced the crushing weight of this domination, their resilience tested by the relentless pressure of compliance, their terror a constant, oppressive shadow cast by the flickering light, their stories buried beneath the weight of imperial silence and the cold indifference of the palace hierarchy, their pain a muted, enduring cry swallowed by the night's oppressive stillness. The terror of these nights often deepened into a lasting, profound impact on the princesses' lives, minds, and emotional landscapes, leaving scars that lingered long after the candles burned out. Imagine the oppressive, heart-pounding atmosphere, the faint, eerie creak of the wooden bed frame as you brace yourself against the inevitable, the bitter, medicinal taste of a sedative slipped into your drink by a trembling servant to dull your senses, the heavy, final thud of retreating footsteps as the guards and eunuchs leave you alone with your fate, the sound reverberating through the chamber like a sentence pronounced. Records from the Ottoman court, such as those chronicling the experiences of Princess Ice, married to a provincial governor under Ahmed, reveal how these nights led to a cascade of isolation, deep-seated shame, and debilitating mental strain, with some princesses confined to their quarters or sent to remote palaces as punishment for their perceived weakness. The presence of armed guards stationed just beyond the door heightened the sense of captivity, turning the bridal chamber into a prison cell where the night stretched into an eternity of dread, their every breath a struggle against the weight of their circumstances. Modern parallels emerge in the 2025 reports of marital abuse survivors and women escaping coercive relationships, their trauma mirroring the psychological toll faced by these princesses centuries ago, a reminder of history's unbroken thread. Was this a cultural expectation woven into the fabric of Ottoman marriage, an accepted rite of passage for royal women, or a deliberate, systematic act of subjugation intended to reinforce the Sultan's authority over his family and court, a world where first nights forged unbreakable chains of fear and despair? The question hangs as the footsteps fade into the distance, leaving only the sound of your own heartbeat. Many suffered in this harrowing ordeal, brides scarred by the power imposed upon them, families complicit in upholding the sultan's will, communities silent in the face of tradition, their resilience a fragile, flickering thread stretched to its breaking point by the weight of their suffering, their pain a hidden, festering wound carried in silence. Their voices lost to the night's oppressive silence and the distant tolling of bells marking another hour of their captivity. But the consequences grew darker with each passing dawn. What toll did these nights exact on their souls, and how did this terror shape their futures? Smash that like button if you're drawn into this dark narrative, and subscribe now to explore the depths of their despair. Imagine you're an Ottoman princess in 1620, confined to a remote, echoing chamber deep within a forgotten wing of a provincial palace, the air thick with the stale, musty scent of neglected velvet curtains hanging in tatters and the faint, persistent drip of water seeping through a leaking roof, your heart heavy as a stone as whispers of shame and disgrace drift beyond the thick walls, carried by the footsteps of indifferent guards, the weight of isolation pressing down on you like a suffocating shroud. This is the world of consequences, a somber and haunting turn from the terror of first nights in Part 4, where princesses of the Ottoman Empire, reigning from 1299 to 1922, faced the devastating aftermath of their wedding nights with profound isolation, deep-seated shame, and an enduring psychological burden that shaped their every waking moment. Here, within the silent, cavernous halls of distant palaces and secluded retreats, these experiences carved indelible scars into their identities, their stories preserved in the faded, tear-stained letters penned in secret, the fragmented memoirs of those who served them, and the whispered gossip that lingered in the harem's corridors. Historians like Batulip Sirlai Arjit, in her meticulous studies of Ottoman women's lives, explore this solitude and its emotional toll, and today, its echoes linger in the mental health struggles and societal stigma faced by women across the globe in 2025, from survivors of domestic abuse to those battling cultural expectations in modern cities. If this moves you with a wave of empathy and curiosity, hit that like button and subscribe now. Comment below your thoughts on this hidden suffering. Your voice honors the resilience of these forgotten souls. The isolation following these harrowing nights was a prison of the mind and soul, amplifying the princess's shame and stripping away their sense of self. Picture the scene, the soft, mournful rustle of a tattered velvet curtain swaying in a cold, relentless draft that seeps through the cracked windowpane, the dim, flickering light of a single oil lamp casting long, distorted shadows on the cracked plaster walls that seem to close in around you, the cold, unyielding touch of a stone floor beneath your bare feet as you pace in despair, the air thick with the stale, dusty aroma of neglect and a faint, bitter scent of unwashed linens piled in a corner. After the first night, princesses like Ice Sultan, married to a provincial governor under Ahmed I's rule, were often secluded in remote quarters far from the bustling heart of the palace, their movements restricted by the watchful eyes of eunuchs and their reputations tarnished by rumors spread by jealous concubines and court gossips. Historical records, such as the Sicilai Osmani, a biographical dictionary of Ottoman figures, note how this isolation was a deliberate measure to protect the sultan's honor and maintain the facade of imperial perfection, yet it left the princesses vulnerable to a spiral of depression, despair, and even madness, their once vibrant spirits dimmed by the crushing solitude. The air carried the damp, earthy chill of a room left unattended and the subtle, salty trace of tears shed in the dead of night, a world where their solitude was both a punishment and a prison, where the silence was as oppressive as any chain. Was this a safeguard of the family's dignity, a noble act to preserve the sultan's reputation, or a cruel sentence of despair designed to break their will, a system where shame became the invisible chain that bound them to their fate? The question lingers as the lamp's faint glow begins to fade into the darkness. Many who suffered through this enforced exile, princesses abandoned to the silence of their own thoughts, attendants complicit in their isolation under the threat of punishment, mothers torn by the inability to comfort their daughters, endured the crushing weight of this imposed loneliness, their resilience tested by the relentless weight of societal judgment, their shame a constant, oppressive shadow cast by the towering walls of their confinement, their stories buried beneath the weight of palace decorum and the cold indifference of the imperial court. Their pain a silent, persistent ache swallowed by the echoing emptiness of their chambers. The psychological toll of this isolation often deepened into a lasting legacy of trauma, stigma, and a profound sense of loss that haunted the princesses for years. Imagine the oppressive, heart-wrenching atmosphere, the faint, mournful creak of a wooden chair as you sit alone with your thoughts, the bitter, herbal taste of a tea meant to soothe your fraying nerves lingering on your tongue like a bitter reminder, the heavy, deliberate thud of a guard's boots patrolling the corridor outside your door, the sound a constant reminder of your captivity. Court documents, including the personal accounts preserved in the archives of Princess Fatma, married to a vassal under Murad IV, reveal how some princesses withdrew into themselves, their mental health deteriorating under the relentless weight of societal judgment and the stigma attached to their perceived failure to embody the ideal of a submissive wife. The harem's rigid hierarchy reinforced this stigma, with concubines and eunuchs spreading tales of weakness or rebellion to maintain order and curry favor with the sultan, their whispers turning the princess's private pain into public spectacle. Modern parallels emerge in the 2025 rise of therapy and support groups for trauma survivors and women escaping coercive relationships, their struggles mirroring the psychological scars borne by these princesses centuries ago, a testament to history's unbroken thread of gendered suffering. Was this a cultural norm woven into the fabric of Ottoman marriage and royal life, an accepted rite of passage for women of the court, or a deliberate, systematic tool of control intended to reinforce the sultan's authority and suppress any hint of resistance, a world where isolation forged an enduring chain of fear and despair that shaped their every breath? The question hangs as the boot's echo fades into the distance, leaving only the sound of your own heartbeat in the stillness. Many bore this unbearable burden, brides scarred by the stigma of their first nights, families silent in the face of tradition and power, communities complicit in upholding the sultan's will, their resilience a fragile, flickering thread stretched to its breaking point by the weight of their suffering and shame, their pain a hidden, festering scar carried in the depths of their silence, their voices lost to the persistent drip of water in the corner and the distant tolling of bells marking another day of their concealed torment. But the impact grew darker with each passing season. What secrets did their silence conceal, and how did this shame alter their destinies forever? Smash that like button if you're touched by their story, and subscribe now to uncover the next layer of this dark legacy. Imagine you're an Ottoman princess in 1650, standing in a candlelit hall of Topkapi Palace as a treaty is signed with deliberate strokes, the air thick with the smoky, pungent scent of melting wax seals dripping onto parchment and the faint, nervous rustle of silk as courtiers shift uneasily. Your heart sinking like a stone as you realize your impending marriage is not a union of hearts but a pawn in a ruthless game of power, the weight of a diplomatic chain settling around your shoulders like an invisible yoke. This is the world of political games, a chilling escalation from the isolation and shame of Part 5, where princesses of the Ottoman Empire, reigning from 1299 to 1922, saw their marriages wielded as calculated weapons of statecraft, their fears intensified by the intricate machinations of the Sultan and his advisors. Here, within the grand, echoing courts and shadowy war rooms of the empire, these unions shaped the fate of nations, their stories preserved in the meticulous diplomatic correspondence of the divan, the detailed annals of court historians, and the whispered tales of harem attendants who witnessed the toll on these royal women. Historians like Halil Analsic, in his authoritative works on Ottoman governance, analyze the strategic use of marriage as a tool of diplomacy and control, and today, its echoes linger in the political marriages and strategic alliances observed in geopolitical maneuvers across the globe in 2025. From diplomatic unions to corporate mergers with hidden agendas. If this unsettles you with a mix of intrigue and empathy, hit that like button and subscribe now. Comment below your thoughts on this hidden sacrifice. Your voice reveals the resilience buried in their story. These marriages were strategic moves on a grand chessboard, turning princesses into tools of diplomacy, control, and imperial expansion. Picture the scene, the soft, warm glow of dozens of candles casting long, wavering shadows on a polished mahogany table strewn with maps and scrolls, the crisp, deliberate rustle of parchment as a treaty is unrolled with ceremonial care, the cold, unyielding touch of a heavy gold ring forced onto your finger by a stern vizier, the air thick with the smoky aroma of melting wax from the seals and the subtle, pervasive tang of tension that hangs like a fog. Sultans like Mehmed II, the Conqueror, and Selim I, the Grim, masterfully used their daughters' weddings to secure critical alliances, marrying princesses like Geverhan Sultan to the Khan of Crimea to stabilize the empire's northern borders, or Hanzade Sultan to a Transylvanian prince to counter Habsburg threats. Historical records, such as the Kanunnameyi Ali Osman, a legal code from the 15th century, detail how these unions were negotiated with military precision, the princesses' personal fears and desires ignored as they were bartered away to foreign rulers, vassals, or even enemies to ensure loyalty, expand territories, or neutralize potential rebellions. The air carried the rich, earthy scent of ink freshly applied to documents and the faint, suppressed sobs of princesses led to their fates, a world where love was a luxury they could not afford, where every ceremonial toast was a reminder of their role as pawns. Was this a masterful tactic of empire building, a testament to the Sultan's political genius, or a ruthless exploitation of innocence for the sake of imperial glory, a system where marriage meant a lifetime of fear and subjugation? The question lingers as the candle's flame sputters in the draught. Many who faced this unchosen destiny, princesses bartered away like chattel, families complicit in the Sultan's schemes under threat of disgrace, attendants bound by duty to prepare them, endured the crushing weight of this strategic sacrifice, their resilience tested by the constant pressure of political expectations, their dread a constant, oppressive shadow cast by the towering presence of the throne room, their stories buried beneath the weight of signed treaties and the cold indifference of imperial ambition, their pain a silent, enduring cost swallowed by the rustle of parchment and the toll of ceremonial bells. The political use of marriage often deepened into a complex network of intrigue, personal sacrifice, and unrelenting pressure that shaped the princess's every moment. Imagine the oppressive, heart-pounding atmosphere, the faint, metallic clink of a silver goblet as you're forced to raise it in a toast to seal your fate, the bitter, astringent taste of wine masking your deep reluctance and rising panic, the heavy, final thud of a massive wooden door as you're escorted to a foreign court under heavy guard, the sound reverberating through the palace corridors like a judge's gavel. Documents from the Ottoman archives, such as those detailing the marriage of Princess Miriam Sultan to Grand Vizier Rustam Pasha under Suleiman the Magnificent's command, show how these alliances required constant oversight and enforcement, with eunuchs and spies ensuring the princess's compliance and reporting any signs of resistance or discontent to the Sultan. The ever-present threat of rebellion, betrayal, or diplomatic failure heightened the stakes, turning each marriage into a battlefield where the princess's personal happiness was the first casualty, their fears amplified by the knowledge that failure could mean exile, imprisonment, or worse for their families. Modern parallels emerge in the 2025 use of strategic marriages or alliances in geopolitics, where individuals are still sacrificed for political gain, from arranged unions in conflict zones to high-stakes corporate partnerships. Was this a deeply ingrained cultural norm accepted as the natural order of royal life, a tradition upheld to maintain the empire's strength, or a calculated power play designed to reinforce the Sultan's iron grip over his dominion and its allies, a world where princesses paid the ultimate price in fear and submission? The question hangs as the door shuts with a final, ominous echo that seems to lock away their freedom. Many suffered in this intricate game, brides sacrificed for the sake of peace or power, courts enforcing silence with threats and surveillance, families bound by the politics of survival, their resilience a fragile, flickering thread stretched to its breaking point by the weight of their imposed roles, their pain a hidden toll paid in quiet tears and stifled breaths, their voices lost to the clink of goblets raised in false celebration and the distant tolling of bells marking another day of their concealed dread. But the game spiraled further out of control with each new alliance. What happened when resistance arose, and how did this power struggle reshape their lives? Smash that like button if you're captivated by this dark narrative, and subscribe now to dive deeper into the shadows of the Ottoman court. Imagine you're standing in a quiet, dimly lit archive in 2025, the air filled with the dusty, nostalgic scent of aging manuscripts stacked in towering shelves and the soft, mechanical hum of a scanner preserving a 17th-century letter penned by an Ottoman princess, your fingers brushing the fragile, yellowed page where her words tremble with fear and resignation, while outside, the distant buzz of a news report about gender inequality and forced marriages filters through the cracked window, blending with the rustle of autumn leaves. This is the legacy of fear, the concluding chapter from the political games of Part 6, where the terrors and traumas endured by Ottoman princesses from 1299 to 1922 left a profound and enduring imprint on the fabric of gender dynamics, a legacy that resonates with startling clarity in the struggles of women today. Here, within the echoes of their stories, forced marriages, isolation, shame, and the relentless use of their unions as tools of power, their silent suffering connects to modern battles for autonomy, their narratives preserved in the delicate folds of historical texts, the fragmented oral histories of harem survivors, and the faded ink of personal correspondences hidden away for centuries. Historians like Soraya Faroqi, through her extensive research into Ottoman social structures, trace this unbroken thread of influence, and today, its echoes linger in the mental health crises, societal stigma, and advocacy movements for women's rights observed across the globe in 2025, from grassroots campaigns in rural communities to high-profile debates in urban centers. If this stirs your soul with a mix of reflection and resolve, hit that like button and subscribe now. Comment below your insights on this enduring legacy. Your voice closes this journey with profound purpose and a call to action. The legacy of these princesses' fears influenced the evolution of gender roles, power structures, and societal expectations across generations. Picture the scene, the gentle, almost reverent rustle of yellowed pages as you carefully turn them under the watchful eye of the archivist, the warm, golden glow of a desk lamp illuminating the faded, spidery ink of a princess's desperate plea, the cold, smooth touch of a glass case protecting this fragile artifact from the ravages of time, the air thick with the dusty, earthy aroma of old paper preserved for centuries and the faint, lingering trace of ink that seems to carry her voice. After the Ottoman Empire's collapse in 1922, the princesses' experiences of coercion, shame, and enforced silence influenced the early reforms of the Turkish Republic, yet the patriarchal norms they endured persisted, subtly shaping women's roles in post-imperial Turkey and beyond, from the veiled constraints of the early 20th century to the ongoing fight for equality. Historical records, like the personal memoirs of Princess Esma Sultan, who documented her isolation after a forced marriage, reveal how their suppressed voices and hidden resilience contributed to the gradual awakening of women's movements, their suffering a catalyst for change that rippled into the global feminist discourse of the late 20th and early 21st centuries. The air carried the musty, nostalgic scent of history unfolding and the subtle hint of a quiet resolve that permeates the room, a world where the fear they carried left an indelible mark on the cultural and political landscape. Was this a lesson from the past that we have willfully ignored, allowing similar patterns to persist, or a foundation upon which we can build a future of change, a system where their pain has shaped the present we inhabit? The question lingers as the lamp's light begins to dim in the gathering dusk. Many who lived through this legacy, princesses bearing the scars of their ordeals, reformers inspired by their stories, modern advocates drawing strength from their endurance, endured the weight of this inherited burden, their resilience tested by the slow progress of justice, their fear a lingering shadow cast by the weight of tradition, their stories emerging as a powerful call to action that echoes through time, their pain a silent yet potent force driving the fight for equality beneath the grandeur of historical narratives. This legacy extends into 2025 with a clarity that is both striking and sobering, reflecting in today's gender struggles and societal evolution. Imagine the somber, reflective atmosphere, the distant, mournful chime of a clock in the archive blending with the sharp, insistent buzz of a 2025 podcast discussing women's rights and marital coercion, the bitter, acrid taste of black coffee turning sour in your mouth as you read of contemporary survivor stories, the cold, heavy realization settling into your chest as you connect these modern headlines to the trembling words of a princess's letter clutched in your hand. The global #MeToo movement and the 2025 campaigns against forced marriages and gender-based violence echo the princess's plight with uncanny precision, while the ongoing debates over women's agency in modern Turkey, where traditional expectations still clash with progressive ideals, mirror their centuries-long fight for autonomy and respect. Artifacts like Esma Sultan's letter, with its cryptic hints of resilience amidst despair, underscore this haunting continuity, serving as a bridge that shows how the past informs the present, how the struggles of these royal women still shape the battles waged by their descendants today. Was this an inescapable cycle of oppression repeated through the ages, a pattern we are doomed to repeat, or a clarion call to break free from the chains of history, a world where their fear still echoes in the voices demanding justice? The question hangs as the chime fades into the hum of the modern world. Many suffer still, women fighting against coercion and abuse, activists seeking justice, survivors reclaiming their narratives, their resilience a powerful, urgent beacon illuminating the path forward, their pain a mirror reflecting the failures of centuries past, their stories urging us to remember, to learn, and to act with courage in the face of adversity. This ends our journey through the shadowy corridors of Ottoman history and the fears that haunted its princesses, but the fight for justice, accountability, and truth begins now, a battle that starts with each of us standing against the darkness that lingers. Smash that like button if you're inspired to make a difference, and subscribe now to join us in seeking a future where these voices are finally heard and honored.